Hi everyone, and welcome back to Season 8 of the Propcast. I'm Louisa, your host of the Propcast and co-founder of LMRE, the global PropTech recruitment and search consultancy. The aim of each episode is to introduce you to a PropTech innovator and discuss how their work has created a shift in focus when it comes to digitalizing the built environment. If you're interested in finding out more about PropTech or applying for a job in this space, or keen to know who the big players are that are moving and shaking the real estate industry, we have you covered, and we'll be bringing you an episode each week to connect you to the VCs, PropTech startups, and real estate professionals from around the globe. Today on the podcast, we are talking about the developments and adoption within ESG and diversity, and we are lucky enough to be joined by Jonathan Hannam, co-founder and managing partner at Taronga Ventures, and Joanna Marsh, the GM of Innovation Advanced Analytics at Investa. So welcome to the show, Jonathan and Joanna, who are both joining us from Australia.
Thank you, Lou. Great to be here.
Thank you, Lou. Excited. So Jonathan and Joanna will be talking us through their journeys towards the built environment and innovation space. What can be done to bridge the gap between the technologists and the real estate institutions and corporates, which when I first started this podcast, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm delighted that they are literally coming on this podcast to talk about exactly that. Now, they're going to share what emerging technologies they believe are revolutionizing real estate and what will have a real impact on the future of our built world. Now, during their careers, they've both experienced a shift in focus, obviously, towards diversity and innovation. I think Joanna will have some super interesting takes on this, considering she's one of the very few women who are into the analytics within real estate. Obviously, they'll both be sharing the major changes they've seen and what can be done to improve diversity and obviously speed up transformation. So without further ado, Jonathan, why don't you kick us start through a bit about your career and then how you ended up obviously being the MD at Taronga. And what I find super interesting about this, because it's a global podcast, you've obviously lived and worked in China, the Philippines, some huge big brands like when you worked at Savills in Singapore. So if you just sort of talk our audience through that and give them a bit more of a flavor about Taronga and its mission, that'd be fantastic.
Sure. So my career actually began in China. I did a postgraduate at a Chinese university when I finished uni, and I was doing urban planning as a career. And I managed to get into quite a cool Chinese university in Beijing called Tsinghua University, one of the sort of market leading universities there. And I stumbled into real estate. I was working for a Singaporean firm in China to begin with, and they were one of the first VC funds that were operating in that market. So this is 1993. And I actually met the daughter of the company, the founding of the company in Beijing, and she suggested I should meet the boss who was in Singapore. And we ended up creating a company that invested into 16 companies in China in 1993 and 1994, and a couple of them were real estate related. So we were doing, this was very early VC, so we were doing chemical factories, we were doing logistics parks. It was a very diverse portfolio, a bus factory, a chemical factory. It was everything from hard industry to soft industries. And I just really liked the real estate portion of what we were investing into. And that led to Savills. Savills was looking to establish in China at the time. And I was one of the first, I guess, expats in that market that knew a little bit about real estate. And then the journey began. So I've been in real estate for the last 25 years. The investment roles were with Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, where I was head of Asia. At ING Real Estate, I was head of a fund in Southeast Asia. And most recently at Mirvac, so a listed real estate trust in Australia. And I think that's where I first met you, Joanna. I was trying to remember, where did I first meet you?
I think you met me when I was at Lendlease. So I think you were starting. Yeah, I think you were at Mirvac, although you might have had just launched, because I remember we had coffee down at Barangaroo and we were talking through your vision of your PropTech fund and Taronga Ventures, and it was quite inspiring even back then.
Cool. Over to you.
Yeah. So with the question, Lou, was about the career journey. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, like you just said, you've obviously worked at some big household names, obviously not only sort of invest, but obviously you've had a good career at Lendlease and Dexter's. And well, I know you were at Stanford before, but your roles have been within sort of transformation, which not, these roles, especially in real estate, are fairly sort of new. So maybe start the audience from your beginning. And so you've got, I think, done about, is it 15 years in real estate? Did you just stumble into it like Jonathan? I don't know. I want to learn.
No, it's a really great question. Yeah. So I was up at Harvard studying neuroscience and was getting disillusioned by all the time spent in the lab, seeing the human genome, just what we were doing kind of around that time. And the investment banks, consulting companies and banks, love Ivy League kids with science degrees. So I went and worked for a real estate bank, KeyBank Real Estate Capital. So we did all the development loans, construction loans, as debt, and the whole structuring side and financial side of real estate, which was very intentional. I loved the built environment and wanted something to do with people and that we could actually see after so much time spent in the lab. So they taught me everything, literally, 100-hour work weeks, and I learned a huge amount. And my first boss, Esg Capital, he taught me how to sell and how to cut deals. And from there, I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So left the bank and started a little fund. We bought multifamily little assets, 10, 12, 20 unit assets, and refurbed them and started the property management company to do that. And then unfortunately the GFC hit pretty hard and we couldn't get the takeouts on the notes. So I had to end up winding that down. So by the time I landed in Australia at 30, I had the failed business and the banking career in real estate, and then went and started running strategy at Dexus and into corporate. And so I have a very different view, I guess, on real estate now that I'm sitting in a corporate role. And I've always been, I guess, on the forefront of innovation. And we were using data back in our multifamily fund in the US and really looking for where to hunt, where to get the competitive advantage and how to cut the deal. And also at the bank, we were using data on all of it. And so it's been a long journey with it, but then worked through investment, all the traditional areas, and then found myself more and more interested in kind of the cutting edge and breaking the status quo. So at Lend-Lease, I was doing transformation and then innovation, getting further and further kind of up the R&D curve until at Investa, it's a pure innovation and advanced analytics role.
And within this, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but what's the sort of strategy behind it? I presume, I know Lend-Lease, they were sort of building products sort of in-house, can they do using products externally? What are sort of investors sort of really sort of honing in on when it comes down to innovation? I know you're specializing especially in the sort of analytics space there as well.
Yes. So we have a broad innovation strategy. I would say the advanced analytics and data underpins all of it, because one of the ways of innovating is, taking on startups and scale-ups and, and integrating new technologies. And the risk of, or the issue of that is most are point solutions. And so the complexity is on the side of the limited partner, on the side of us. We need that consumption layer to be able to actually even integrate a new point solution and be able to get that ROI. So the data and analytics sit under everything that we do. And it's also to benefit the startup so that we can, give them some data to prototype on or to play with us in a way that's safe and with strong governance. So that's part of it. And then we're looking at how we apply that to other areas. So for example, the human experience and hyper-personalization, we can use data to then fuel, all of that innovation work as well. And then new product development, like build to rent and areas like that.
Okay, amazing. So covering a fair amount of asset classes as well.
Hey, it's Michael Beckerman, CEO of Cretech and Cretech Climate. I hope you'll join us in Copenhagen for our first dedicated climate event on May 17th through the 19th. Only 200 of the world's leading sustainability professionals will be on hand at this event to connect, exchange ideas, and be inspired by world-class speakers. For more information, please visit our website, cretechclimate.com.
Jonathan, so back to you. You're currently running obviously Esg Impact Program. Sadly, those listening in, applications have closed. I think they closed at the end of March. But obviously that's a focus on ESG. I know Taronga is very much looking at that sort of space. Globally, you've done quite a few investments. But is this for that focus? A lot of your institutional investors and partners, I mean, they're the big household names like APG, CBRE, PGEM, and so forth. Is that slightly driven by what they want when it comes down to technology and innovation? Talk us through the program, the mission of it.
Yeah, so the program is really, I guess, it's something that when we founded the business, we realized that there was this incredible opportunity to be in between the real estate world and all of the, I guess, emerging technology companies that were now targeting the sector. And in order to be, I guess, the ecosystem, we needed to have both the fund, which is the firepower investing into the companies, but also a growth program that was much more focused on the founders and supporting the teams, the founding teams on their journey through the real estate. Yes, the challenging journey through the real estate sector. And so our first 3 programs, we've run 2 programs in Australia. We then did one in Singapore that was focused on construction technology and smart cities. And then what we've clearly seen from all of our investors is that there's now a much greater focus on using ESG to actually deliver real outcomes. So not as a cost center, but actually as a potential profit center. And so the ESG Impact Program, so for select high caliber quality companies, there's still a little bit of room to take companies in. We're formally closing it off at the end of, actually the 22nd of April. So we've had about 180 companies now apply, 30 plus countries, and these are not startups. So I think one of the most important things that we recognized was we needed to move up to the, I guess, to scale, scalable businesses that already had customers and they had some level of traction, because the real estate world actually couldn't deal with startups. And so most firms, most of the, big real estate groups, they think that they can actually take on board a startup and nurture it. But, business as usual gets in the way, and you're not going to have time to support a business that's in that growth phase. You need to have something that already works before you can put it in your portfolio. So the ESG program, the sweet thing with this one is that the corporate partners actually select the final 12 companies. So, the participants that are in the program, they've already got a running start with some of those. And so it'll really kick off in July. We'll announce the next 12 companies. So far we've had 33 companies come through the program. We've actually deployed about $25 million into those companies. The fund is the active source of capital, but outside of the fund, our investors have also deployed lots of capital into those companies. So it is the ecosystem builder for us.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I guess whilst we're on the topic ESG, I'm not here to say that I know lots about extracting data and everything like that, but what I do hear in the market is when it comes down to ESG, taking a good metrics, good data from it, it's very difficult. And everyone's looking for technology you can do. Obviously, there's 3 components of it. Joanna, what's your sort of take on that? Because obviously you have a focus in sort of advanced analytics. Is that a challenge that you face as an investor? And also obviously in your previous businesses, like how do you actually get that proper data without having, say, that technology there to support it?
It's a really good question. And in real estate, historically, the industry has been extremely opaque and there's been huge information asymmetry. And that's resulted in just a massive lack of transparency. If you imagine, the trading floors in New York before the NASDAQ came in, you had to be on-prem, you had to have a loud voice, you had to make your call heard, you had to be a man in that instance. But then the technology came in like NASDAQ and started absolutely disseminate the information. And where real estate is right at that cusp. So the information asymmetry is breaking down. And what's happening is we're starting to be able to abstract data from other industries and from other data sets to back solve and fill in data that the real estate industry either doesn't have or is not sharing. And so we're down to a field level. There's I call it the periodic table of, data in real estate. We've distinguished the superset of data points you need to run a real estate business. And basically only 20% are your internal data. The rest of it you can proxy and get from external data sets. So once you have that world, if you don't have it or you can't get access to it, you can proxy it. And then as your models work, your confidence gets better and better and you can backfill in some of the data. So it's a work in progress, but it's definitely coming along. And to your point on ESG, again, the pressure from the investors and the capital is forcing, I guess, a level of transparency and scrutiny that is going to become akin to, say, financial reporting. And so with that pressure, the resources are there to find and proxy and get the data, which is really good. But I love what you said, Jonathan, too, about corporates not knowing how to deal with startups. I think that's absolutely true. And I thought the other day, it might be very kind of us to do a whole series of something on here's how you work with startups and also vice versa. Startups, here's how you work with corporates and how you work through their governance. So I think what you do is absolutely great.
On the topic of sort of, I guess, more investment going to this space, obviously institutions wanting to use this. I mean, everyone's got a sort of motive at the moment. Obviously, lots of people I hope want to do it for, the future of our built environment. But there's some other businesses, whether it's like DeepQ, which I don't know if DeepQ's over in sort of APAC yet, but they basically focus on measuring sort of energy consumptions in and assets. Is obviously like measurable, which my understanding is obviously grown globally with being led by sort of Matt. Alice, are there any technologies, and maybe there could be a couple that have come out of one of your programs, Jonathan, which you guys would like to sort of share with us as two people very immersed in the industry?
Yeah, so we've touched on a couple of things there. So the first one being the investor interest in this space. And I think we've seen that for 12 months. It's been every investor, every discussion has been about ESG. In that sort of building management, energy efficiency space, there is a lot of companies that are targeting that as an area. And I think that's quite a low-hanging fruit. So there's lots of companies that are actually involved in that space. We've invested into a couple of them, but I think what we're looking for is a more complete solution. When we put that together, then I think we'll have so there's components of that solution are there, but we're looking at how we can actually broaden that and have it, I guess, also incorporating some level of even a digital twin of some type that also links into asset control and access control and asset management and portfolio management, and it talks to everything. So we're not there yet. And we haven't seen anything that is that complete solution yet. So hopefully in our program, we'll see something there. But I think maybe as a reflection over the last 6 or 7 years, I think what we've seen is there's been a great maturing of the quality of companies that are actually targeting this space. And so if we look back at some of those original companies that we looked at, and there's actually a level of maturity and a quality of founder that's now targeting this space, because we've seen some really good capital raising. We're early investors in OpenSpace, which is a US company out of San Francisco that is in the construction technology. They actually allow you to completely understand what's occurring on a workspace and compare it to BIM. And that business is scaled. It's now in something like 78 countries. So, you see things like that actually they're cost effective, they're brilliant solutions, and they're scaling rapidly. And that's a feature of this space that, it often isn't a cost. It's actually a benefit, that it can be a fantastic upside for the corporates that start using this technology.
And Joanna, is there any sort of time in this real estate space? Is there any sort of major trends which you've seen?
Yeah, I think the move from the point solutions to something that is more of a holistic ecosystem and the blending of the technologies together is the key trend I'm seeing come. And it's absolutely necessary, because right now we might put in a new piece of amazing technology that solves one niche problem, either in a process function or, a vertical for us or in property. And it simplifies that particular part, right? Say payments. It might simplify a part of something, but it causes so much extra exhaust, not only from a process standpoint, but data standpoint, that the complexity is just mounting and mounting and mounting. And like barnacles on a ship, we just need to take a sword and just like clean it off and get that one consumption layer. So we're actually working with a startup that's still in stealth mode right now that is building that layer. And then we're doing an ESG use case in conjunction with Oxford, actually, my counterpart, Dean Hopkins over there. But we're doing an ESG use case so that we can mash together all the real estate data and all the internal data, all our internal leasing data and financial data.
Sounds like a very big project. When did you start looking at that?
Probably 6 months ago, I would say.
Yeah. When you reckon you'll come to the end of it and be able to have the internal and external data, how long do these things take?
It takes a while at the beginning, because we're figuring out and untangling the threads. Once you get the critical mass of data in the system, it's fast. So a use case used to take us, 3 to 6 months, and now it takes a couple of weeks. Sustainability is a little more complex because of players and certifications. So you'll want, for example, GRESB, you'll want the different elements and players involved in modern slavery and the whole world of it. So it gets it more complex. But yeah, a use case now is a couple weeks max to get it up and running because most of the data is in.
Yeah, super impressive sort of speeding up for that amount of time. Now, we've obviously mentioned a couple of barriers in the space. Obviously, not having one product end-to-end solution. We've mentioned obviously focuses in areas when it comes down to the ESG now. One barrier which we are working through is obviously DEI. It's also a focus of every company's mind at the moment. Joanna, as a very powerful woman in this space, when I say powerful, I mean, I'm sure lots of young women are sort of looking up to just see your sort of career journey, which is why I really wanted you to talk us through it. What's, from your sort of personal experience, what do you think we could do to, I guess, attract more, not just women, but just attract more people into space, but also like how can we retain them? It's a super exciting time, but we need to make sure that we still have this human capital sort of flow. But when you think of data, analytics, real estate, often there's not as many people going into that. So it could be, I guess, people going into sort of some traditional sort of broking roles. Even on I personally think that I don't think traditional broking roles are as exciting as what, say, you're working on. So what do you think can be done?
I think it's a great question. I think the first thing is to know that it's possible. And I was getting my hair done, and this is a frivolous story, but I was getting my hair done the other week, and the woman was blow drying my hair, talking, we were having a thing, and she was saying she's going to go back to school. And I said, okay, well, what are you planning on doing? And she said, I'm going to be a counselor because I really want to help people. And I said, okay, great. And we talked through the why and the how and the what. And about halfway through, I said, can I offer you something? And she said, yeah. I said, have you considered what you might do in the world of technology as an enabler to the impact you're committed to making through counseling or through the different things we were talking about?
Yeah.
She hadn't even considered it as an enabler to making a difference otherwise. So I think that is part of it, is just going, like, it's actually a tool that we can all use applied to everything. And just saying, no, it's not that hard. Just look into it anyway. So that would be one thing I would say. And then in terms of retaining, I think it's really about honoring diversity of thought and diversity of innovation, which is not obviously gender specific, but just going, we build better products and better businesses with diverse thought.
Yeah.
And so if we don't have women in the room, for example, we're missing an entire cohort, and the thought and the ways we've been socialized and all of that sort of stuff. So I think that's a big one. And the beautiful thing about tech and prop tech and real estate as well is that you can do it one day a week if you want to. One of my senior data engineers is going on maternity leave, and she'll do one use case with me as she comes back, which is literally one day a week, and we can size it to that. So it's actually a perfect thing for diversity.
I was doing some research the other day. Can you believe it that some of the biggest companies in the world didn't exist 30 years ago, the likes of Facebook and Uber? On the other hand, real estate is a total juxtaposition, being the oldest asset class in the world. We often hear about the property industry being a slow mover, and the need for prop tech is clear to improve solutions and take advantage of the data being gathered. We saw $21 billion in investment into prop tech in 2020, and it was predicted a further increase of 25% in 2021, which has already been surpassed, which means there'll be plenty to talk about when it comes to the innovation of the built environment. EY reported that 53% of real estate owners think that they don't have the in-house talent to adopt technology successfully. Without technology-minded talent and leadership, the implementation and widespread adoption of your product might be proving tricky. If that is the case, we are here to help. So head to our website, LMRE.tech, and we can find the right talent for your company's needs.
Jonathan, what about you? I know we've spoken about a hire you've been looking to make, and it's the applications that are coming through are maybe not as diverse as you would like to. And then obviously speaking from, say, my own recruitment background, it's so important when you're growing a business, especially early stage, to have, I guess, senior management, a lot more sort of balanced and diverse, because that's how you'll also get more people coming into it as well. What's your sort of experience being at this, or is I don't know if you've made that sort of high yet, and maybe if someone's listening to this, that it could be a great way of finding someone, but it's really hard to get more diverse people in space. So what have you sort of seen?
Yeah, so I think this is a topic that all of us, the three of us, have spent some time trying to raise the awareness of. The real estate sector isn't greatly diverse, especially at the senior leadership level globally. There are pockets where there are market leaders, like in Australia, like Mirvac and Investa, where there's very good senior talent. Dexus as well in Australia. We've got some market leaders, and what we've really tried to do from an advisory board, from our hiring policy, is to have the most diverse approach to hiring that we can have. But we've found that if we look through to the businesses in which we're investing, we often see male-founded real tech or prop tech related businesses. So there's that component of risk that founders have not been willing to take, and we then tell those founders that your business will be more attractive to us from a capital perspective if you can demonstrate that you've got diversity of leadership. And so if you've got a female co-founder, or if you can bring senior female or diverse talent through your business, it actually makes it a more attractive company in which to invest. And we're seeing that even with our program, that's actually becoming a part of our assessment for whether we take those companies through. But it is challenging. And if we look back to our Singapore program, we had nearly 200 applicants in that one. But at that time, there was only 12 female founded businesses that had approached us. And so we're doing a lot of work to try to positively fund female founded enterprises. We support a whole range of initiatives that are in that space. And then specifically, I think the ESG hire that we're still looking to fill, it's probably the hottest talent category there is at the moment, which is great. It means that there's, every company is looking to bring in talent in the ESG space. We've got a couple of people that we're moving through a sort of a process at the moment. So I think we will have that hired shortly, but that doesn't stop us from hiring additional people in that space, because I think it's such a big area. So I think from our point of view, we need to positively reinforce through capital, through education, that this is actually, like Joanna said, so allowing flexibility. The flexible approach is actually one that will allow more people to participate in this growing class of investment opportunity.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear that obviously that's one of the strongest focus and sort of aware of investing to more women founders. I was looking at some stats and Crunchbase, because obviously LMRE, we are permanently looking at new businesses which are obviously gaining sort of funding, so we can sort of help them grow. But in 2019, 2.8% of funding went to women-led startups, and in 2020 that fell to 2.3%. So you'd hope it couldn't fall lower, less than 2.8%. So that is just, obviously that's more Crunchbase, it's more generalist, it's not obviously focused on ESG or PropTech, but those figures are slightly worrying. So hopefully that's going to change. But going back to your point about education, I don't know about when you guys were at school, obviously you were at university. When no one spoke about sort of tech. No one definitely didn't speak about data. Oh my God. But now we're starting to see more university, whether it's sort of MIT, Cornell. I know the guys at, say, Metaprop, like my friend Zander and Aaron, they're going around and speaking to these students who are now trying to actually look at PropTech and ESG. But I still think even when you're going to the universities, you need to get children or people at a younger age starting to look at ESG, looking at sort of tech, which just isn't happening in, like, I don't know, in Australia, but in the UK, it's not really spoken about unless you go to, a school that sort of looks at tech, but I don't think many of them really do. And so I think a hell of a lot's got to change when it comes down to the education system from when we're all children. When I'm talking to people gone to these incredible universities, and good for them getting in or having that opportunity to go there. But obviously within tech, there's the data roles. There's obviously for some of them, you need to study sort of machine learning, but loads of people don't know about all the other roles when it comes down to account management, business development, sales, or any of those skills which are softer, because they were just like, oh no, like if I, people just see certain routes you can go down in life, whether it's consultancy, education, banking. But I feel like everyone needs to talk about all these different skills which you can use in other industries, but we just don't know about it. Like in Australia, do you have any, when you guys were growing up or going into this space, or maybe you guys talk at schools, but have you seen any change happening when it comes down to the education? So I've just gone on for a bit. I'm just quite passionate about it because it just baffles me how people don't talk about these career pathways.
So I moved to Australia from Sweden, and in Sweden, there's just a different approach, and the government support for equality and for maternity and paternity leave being equal, and actually cheap childcare, which is universal, allows, both partners to effectively decide if they want to work or not. And both partners generally do work. So I think we've got systematic issues in Australia in that, we have expensive childcare, and the decisions that families tend to make is that one works and one doesn't. And the cost of childcare is the balance. So we've got massive structural issues that prevent diversity. And it means that we will struggle to compete globally. And so I don't think Australia is a very good example to think of in this space. I don't think we are supporting, I think we need major structural shifts, and that's getting quite political, but that is the challenge here. We have, for many relationships, there tends to be that the wife actually does the childcare because it costs $500, $600 per week or more. And so the salary offset's just not worth it. So it's a systematic issue here.
I don't know, Joanna, if there's anything you want to add on to that.
I guess not about the schooling. I didn't do schooling in Australia. I would say the other part of the education that's not really about tech, but it is an egregious stat on the female founder funding rate, is also how to even do that, how to raise capital, and in a way that we can be included in it, because there was a point, you get 10 slides, you get one bullet point. Here's your metrics, total addressable market. It's broken down this way. Like the entire structure of raising capital as a startup, especially if you've never done it before, really is very masculine in terms of the way and the networks and the entrenchedness of it. And so I think there's also a education piece in even how to start a high growth startup and a tech company, and then even then how to raise money and some support along that as well, in addition to the actual content of, say, data or analytics or tech.
I've touched on a few sort of belly sort of big points, I which everyone thought we didn't have these questions then. Slightly sidetracked. Right, let's end on a high and talk audience fear and Jonathan stuff first. What's the next for Taronga? Obviously, this program's a big sort of focus for you. Yeah, let us know.
We started going through already those applicants for the Esg Impact Program, and it's mind blowing. Some of the companies that have applied. We've got applications from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from Estonia, from Canada. It's just fantastic. Some of them touch on some really interesting use of AI for ethics and for biases, which I think is really going to be quite challenging for some of our partners to digest. So, so I think the next 3 months is we're churning through hundreds of deals to work out the partners for the program. It's a really fun experience, and where we then spend time with each of the corporate partners just to help them work out which is the top 15 or 20 for them, and then we bring that all together to announce a group of 12. So that's what we're focused on at the moment.
Awesome, very excited. And Joanna, what about you? What's sort of next? What you're working on? That's obviously you mentioned the project you're working on, sort of Dean Hopkins. Yeah, what are you sort of most excited about? What's coming up?
I think the ESG, the data and analytics and advanced analytics into ESG, I'm really excited about, and the ecosystem around that, and disseminating a lot of it to, say, a social enterprise or affordable housing groups. I think there'll be a big impact to the broader community around that piece of data and analytics and innovation. I also am really excited about, I guess, giving the power back to the people, where you no longer have to beg IT for a lot of innovation, and starting to get to the point where, if you want to know something, you can load data in, there's templates, there's models, there's ways of doing it yourself, such that we're not reliant as much on waiting for resources or waiting for money. Things are getting cheaper, things are getting faster, moving, and it's no longer necessarily a big death march of a 2-year project to do something. And that's only going to speed up. And so the power of that's intoxicating. If you can actually solve some of these questions yourself, even down to something as simple as, where do you buy your house? And you have access to 6 million pieces of data in, say, New South Wales and Australia, and 30 years of history, you can start to play around with like, what should I pay and where should I go and what are the trends? So that really democratization, and I guess it's almost a fairness part of it, and accessibility to me is the most exciting thing.
Yeah, also creating a hell of a lot more transparency around those sort of data points.
Hi, I'm Nelson from Property Quants. We run a hands-on, in-depth course that will teach you to apply data science and machine learning to real estate. To learn more, visit propertyquants.com/training. We also run a revolutionary course that will allow anyone to gain data science skills without needing to learn programming. To learn more about that, visit thenocodecourse.com. On either site, be sure to key in the code LMRE5 for a special 5% discount.
I'm conscious of time. Obviously, in Australia, it's getting slightly later for you. I could go on talking to both of you forever. But how we finish off these podcasts is at the LMRE part. So L is, talk us through a major lesson you've learned throughout your career. M is, give someone a product, a service, a shout out. Obviously, we've done a few already, but anyone who you would like to give a special mention to. R is what's been the most rewarding part. E is what are you most excited about for the future of PropTech. Now, we've kind of covered E, so if we just go for the LMR, Jonathan, do you want to go through what's one of the, I'm sure you've learned many lessons, any one which is, I guess, more sort of poignant for you?
Sure. So the key lesson, I think, for every founder is that decision-making in the corporate real estate world takes longer, and you need to build your business to be able to withstand that challenge. So perseverance, never giving in. Those decisions eventually get made, but it does take a lot longer for the bigger corporates to actually make a decision about companies. The shout out, I couldn't really go past SpaceCube, one of the businesses we invested into. They did at the recent Melbourne Grand Prix, they did with very short notice, many of the facilities, including Ferrari stand, incredible temporary facilities that were produced in a very short amount of time and delivered a seamless result. And we were down in their factory, and it was just incredible to see this momentum of real technology being used in an event that suddenly had 400,000 people attended in 4 days, and they were expecting 200. Most rewarding, I think it's the people. So, being a real estate person and, seeing, I just kept getting excited that people were trying to improve the real estate sector. And when we first met, these emerging tech, Avi would be on the other side saying, no, that's not a great company. I'm like, no, but look what they're trying to achieve. This would be great if we could make this work. So we're loving the people aspect of this. And I think that's what makes us excited. Real tech is actually about the people.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. And I was just looking at SpaceCube. It's SpaceCube, that's sort of modular housing. Am I right? That's the right one?
It's modular construction. So actually, they're just expanding in the UK, so that they should be in touch with you at some point. They started out in the entertainment space, but during COVID, they morphed into doing temporary hospitals, nursing home facilities. They've done show suites for Mirvac and for Stockland, but they're now they're going global, and it's really great.
Well,
about 88% gets reused, 80 or 90% gets reused.
Oh, incredible. I think that's, one of the many businesses that had to slightly diversify and shift their product, but great to hear that they're back on track and really sort of growing. Now, Joanna, finishes off, what's one of the main lessons you've learned? Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, and what's been the most rewarding part working within the real estate data analytics space?
Great. It's been a great show. So main lessons is just be really resourceful and find a way. And often, if you're in a corporate, there's budget constraints, there's, process constraints. You have to write all these memos and all this stuff. And there's always a way, and you never stop the far away. And the same with your startup founder, there's always a way. The mention, I would say, is Will Cosby. Can't go past him. He's the technical co-founder of the platform, the open data platform that we're using, Exomnia, and my partner in crime on building this whole thing. And the rewarding aspects of working in PropTech, I think it's the partnering, because the right partners spend time in reality, and we can innovate in ways that we never could otherwise. So I'm often so surprised at what we come up with when we go through partnering. And what am I most excited about? It's actually that, and I talked a little bit about it earlier, but that distilling down to the fundamental set of, I guess, data points. I'm calling it a decision twin, but it's a model of a company that takes all the decisions, all the data points, all the calculations, everything. And we can start to see how to move the company in a way where all the networks are interrelated. So I'm quite excited about that.
Awesome. Well, look, Joanna, it's been amazing. This is obviously the first time we've been getting to the know each other. It's amazing hearing about, I guess, what you focus on, your sort of growth and journey you've taken. Jonathan, I absolutely love the focus of Taronga. I think it's super exciting how you're sort of running these programs as well and what products are really going to sort of come out of it as well, which is exactly what our world needs. So thank you both so much for joining the podcast. I'll obviously catch up with you guys separately after the show. I will be seeing you in a few months in Australia. But no, thank you so much. And I hope the audience enjoys it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Propcast. And a big thanks to our guests and our sponsors, CreTech and ReamTech. Make sure you visit our website, lmre.tech, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, keep up our industry news and events, or if you're looking for your next career move, it's all on there. The Propcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, where all good content is found. Whilst we're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate it if you could spread the word and tell a friend about it, or even write us a review. And I'll catch you next week.
Making high-quality podcasts like this takes a lot of work. That's a fact. But not when you hire Copus. With our white glove experience, we handle everything for you, from guest outreach all the way through publishing and promotion. We handle it all. You show up to hold great interviews like these and build relationships with your guests. We take care of everything else. Podcasting is not just about the audience. Every podcast interview is the start of a brand new relationship. With a weekly podcast, you would build relationships with 52 ideal partners or prospects through podcast interviews over the next 12 months. Do you believe 52 new relationships could grow your business? We do. Why not contact me today, jason@copus.com, JASON@KOPUS.com, and let's talk.